On the edge of the Varelli system, where starlight thinned and silence grew teeth, a figure moved through the ruins like breath through glass. She did not wear armor, not anymore. Her clothes were patched and faded, stitched with threads of memory more than function. Her name was Kira Maddox, though few still used it. Among the scattered elven outposts, they called her the Wraith, not for fear, but for the way she slipped between moments, unseen until she chose to be seen. She walked with quiet steps over broken stone and scorched metal. Once this place had been a trade hub, a meeting point between elven diplomats and human freighters. Now it was a graveyard. Hulls of old ships leaned like fallen trees. Vines of native flora crept through shattered viewports, reclaiming what war had abandoned, and above it all the twin moons of Varelli's hung pale and indifferent. Behind her, wings folded tight against his spine, came Riven. He was not a dragon in the old myths, not fire-breathing, not hoarding gold. He was something older, something the human archives called a bioengineered apex companion. But to Kira, he was simply home. His scales were black as void space, but threaded with faint blue veins that pulsed when he breathed. His eyes held no pupils, just silver mirrors that reflected not what was, but what could be. He moved on four limbs, low to the ground, tail coiled like a question mark. When he exhaled, the air shimmered with static. They had been bonded since the collapse, not by choice, not by design, but by accident in a lab that no longer existed. Kira had been a junior xenolinguist then, assigned to decode alien signals from the outer rim. Riven had been Project Ghostwing, a failed attempt to create a living weapon that could think like a human and fight like a storm. But something in the bonding sequence went wrong. Instead of obedience, it gave empathy. Instead of control, it gave trust. And when the base fell to the first wave of the silent war, they ran. Not as soldier and weapon, but as two lost things finding each other in the dark. Now, years later, they lived in the bones of that war. Kira's shelter was carved into the side of a collapsed reactor tower, vines draped over the entrance like a curtain. Inside, the walls were lined with salvaged tech, old comms units, broken drones, data slates covered in handwritten notes. Shelves held dried rations, herbal tinctures, and a single photograph, a human woman in a white coat, smiling beside a young Kira, her mother. Gone before the war, gone before the silence. Riven settled in the corner, curling around a heat vent that still gave off faint warmth. His bioluminescence dimmed. He was resting, but Kira could not. Something had changed. 3 nights past, a scout skiff belonging to the elven enclave of Silthar had vanished near the neutral zone. No distress call. No debris field, just gone. At first, the elders dismissed it as drift. Maybe a navigation glitch, maybe a meteor strike. But Kira had listened to the last seconds of the comms feed. Beneath the static, there was a sound. Not mechanical. Not elven. Something guttural. Rhythmic. Like a chant. Like a hunt. She had spent the last 2 days scanning old military bands, filtering noise, chasing whispers. And then last night she found it. A fragmented signal buried under layers of encryption. It used syntax from the pre-collapse human era. Not just human, but military. Special operations. Predator-class dialect. The kind used only by elite units trained to operate behind enemy lines to kill without trace. Her hands had shaken when she played it back, because this was not just any unit. This was Ghost Protocol Alpha, the program that created Riven, and it was active again. She looked at Riven. He lifted his head slowly as if he had felt her unease. His silver eyes met hers. No words passed between them. None were needed. The next morning, a messenger arrived. He was young, barely past his first bonding ritual, and his hands trembled as he handed her a sealed data wafer. "The High Council summons you," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "They say you are the only one who understands. The human way." Kira did not answer. She took the wafer, brushed dust from her coat, and nodded once. They would not summon her for peace. They would not summon her for trade. Only one thing brought the Council's attention down from their crystalline spires. Fear. And fear, she knew, was never wrong. The journey to the capital took 3 days by skiff. Riven flew low, hidden beneath cloud cover, his form masked by a cloaking field generated from his own bioelectric field. Kira sat between his shoulder blades, eyes scanning the terrain below. The land was healing slowly. Forests regrew where fire had scorched. Rivers ran clearer, but the scars remained. In the twisted skeletons of old defense towers, in the silent villages that never woke again. The elven capital, Lithara, rose from the heart of the continent like a song-made stone. Spires of polished obsidian curved toward the sky, interwoven with living trees that bore silver leaves. Bridges of light connected platforms high above the ground. It was beautiful and fragile. As they approached, a pulse of energy washed over them, not hostile but probing. The city's defense grid recognized Riven, not as a threat but as an anomaly, a relic. They were allowed to land. At the base of the central spire, 2 honor guards waited. They wore no weapons, only ceremonial blades at their hips. Their eyes were sharp, unreadable. Lieutenant Maddox, one said. "The council will see you now." She nodded. Riven stayed behind, coiled beside the landing pad. The elves did not forbid him entry. They simply knew better than to ask a ghost to walk among ghosts. Inside the spire, the air was cool and still. Light filtered through stained crystal, casting shifting patterns on the floor. The chamber of the High Council was circular, with 13 thrones arranged in a half-circle. The elders sat tall, their faces lined with centuries. At the center stood a woman with eyes like cracked ice, Archmatron Silva, speaker of the conclave. Kira stopped 10 paces from the lowest step. She did not bow. She did not speak. She waited. "You are late," Silva said. "I came when summoned," Kira replied. Her voice was soft but clear. "You brought your beast." "He is not a beast." Silva's gaze narrowed. "We have seen what your kind calls companions. They tear cities apart. Riven has never harmed an innocent, and yet he was built to kill." "So were your warships," Kira said. "And your drones, and your orbital lances, but you call them defenders." A murmur passed through the council. Silva held up a hand. Silence returned. "A scout vessel is gone," she said, voice now lower. "No wreckage, no signal. Only this," she gestured, and a hollow image flickered to life. A fragment of the same encrypted transmission Kira had found. "You know this language?" Silva said. "Yes." "Translate it." Kira looked at the symbols. They twisted in her mind, unlocking memories she had tried to bury. "It says the cage is open. The old blood runs again." The council stirred. "What does it mean?" asked an elder from the left. "It means someone woke up the predator strains," Kira said. "The ones designed to hunt without reason, to kill for dominance, not survival. Humanity abandoned such things after the Unity Accords," another elder countered. "Abandoning a weapon doesn't destroy it," Kira said. "It just lets someone else pick it up." Silva studied her. "Why would humans turn on their own?" "They are not turning on their own," Kira said. "They are turning on everyone, elves included." A heavy silence filled the chamber. "Then why come to you?" Silva asked. "Because I am the only one who knows how they think," Kira said. "And because Riven, he was the leash. And someone cut it." Silva turned to the others. They conferred in low tones, their words too soft to hear. After several minutes, she faced Kira again. "You will stand before the full conclave tomorrow at dawn. You will explain what this predator instinct truly is. And you will tell us, truthfully, if humanity can be trusted." Kira did not smile. "I cannot speak for all of humanity. Only for what I have seen." "Then speak," Silva said. "Because if your kind has truly awakened this side instinct, then we may have no choice but to treat you as we would any other apex predator." Kira understood. "Eradication." She turned and walked out, her footsteps echoing in the hollow hall. Outside, Riven rose as she approached. He lowered his head. She placed a hand on his snout, feeling the faint hum of his core. "They think we're the monsters," she whispered. Riven blinked once. His bioluminescence pulsed gently like a heartbeat. "Maybe we are," she said, "but we're the kind that still remembers how to protect." Above them, the twin moons rose higher. Somewhere beyond the edge of known space, something old and hungry stirred, and it was hunting. Dawn came to Lithra not with fanfare, but with quiet light that slipped through the crystal spires like a secret. Kira stood at the edge of the council platform, barefoot on cool stone, her breath steady though her pulse was not. Riven remained below, coiled near the base of the spire, his presence a silent weight in the air. They had not allowed him inside this time. Not out of fear, elves did not fear easily, but out of tradition. Only those with a voice were permitted in the chamber of judgment. And today, Kira had to be that voice. The full conclave gathered in silence. 13 elders, each representing one of the great elven bloodlines, sat in their thrones of woven light and ancient wood. Their faces were unreadable, carved by centuries of neutrality. Archmatron Silva sat at the center, her silver hair braided with threads of memory, crystal that shimmered with every tilt of her head. Kira stepped forward when called. She wore no uniform, only her usual tunic and trousers, patched but clean. She carried no weapon. Her only armor was truth. "Speak," Silva said. "Tell us what the humans have become." Kira looked at them, not with defiance, not with sorrow, but with clarity. "Humans have not become anything new," she said. "They have only remembered what they tried to forget." A murmur rippled through the chamber. "We have studied your species for generations," said Elder Vorin from the Eastern Rim. His voice was dry as old parchment. "Humans are builders, inventors, chaotic, yes, but never without purpose. You fight for land, for ideology, for survival. But this signal speaks of slaughter without gain. That is not human. That is animal. Animals do not encrypt their calls in military-grade ciphers," Kira replied. "They do not use coordinated drop patterns or orbital insertion tactics. What you call animal is not instinct. It is weaponized instinct. And yes, humans made it." She paused, then continued. "Long before the Unity Accords, during the Fracture Wars, certain black units were developed. Not just soldiers, hunters. They were trained to track, to corner, to eliminate without trace. Their minds were altered, their empathy suppressed. They were called predators not because they ate their enemies, but because they hunted for the thrill of dominance." "Fairy tales," muttered Elder Nalari, her fingers tracing the arm of her throne. "Not fairy tales," Kira said. "Ghost Protocol was real. Riven was its first success. He was meant to control them, to be a living leash through bioresonance. But the project was shut down after the incident on Thranis Colony." "Thranis was destroyed by a reactor meltdown," said Vorin. "Officially," Kira said. "In truth, it was wiped clean by Predator units who refused recall. They killed thousands, not for orders, but because they could. And when Command tried to activate Riven's override, something failed. He bonded to me instead of obeying." Silence. Silva leaned forward slightly. "You believe these same units are active again?" "I know they are," Kira said. "The signal I intercepted used the same vocal modulation and syntax as Ghost Alpha. And the scout ship that vanished. Its last ping placed it near the old Hades relay. That was a human black site, buried after the Accords. Then it is ruins," Nalari said. "Dust and echoes. Ruins can be dug up," Kira said. "And echoes can be turned into voices." Silva studied her for a long moment. Then she rose. "You ask us to believe that your people, your own kind, have birthed monsters and set them loose among the stars. That they no longer seek peace but prey. I do not ask you to believe me," Kira said. "I ask you to prepare." "Prepare for what?" Vorin demanded. "A war with shadows?" "A war with humans who no longer see elves as equals," Kira said. "Only as targets. Because to a predator, everything that breathes is either food or competition." The chamber grew colder. Silva turned to the others. "We have long held that humanity, for all its chaos, possesses a core of reason. That is why we signed the Accords. That is why we opened our borders. But if what she says is true, if the predator strain has returned, then we face not an enemy but an extinction event masked as war." "We should isolate human sectors," Nalari said quickly. "Cut off all contact. Let them tear each other apart." "They will not stay in their sectors," Kira said. "Predators do not respect fences. They test them, then break them." Vorin stood. "And what would you have us do, Wraith? Arm every child? Turn our cities into fortresses? Abandon the path of harmony for fear of a whisper?" "I would have you listen," Kira said. "Not to me, but to the silence where your scout ship should be." Before anyone could respond, a chime echoed through the spire. Soft, urgent. A junior aide rushed in, bowing low. "Forgive the intrusion, honored ones," he said, voice tight. "But we've detected a signal burst from the outer rim. Not encrypted. Not hidden. Broadcast openly on all frequencies." Silva's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The aide activated a small projector. A voice filled the chamber, deep, rough, edged with something feral. It spoke in human, but the words were simple enough for even the elves to grasp through translation fields. "We are awake. We remember the taste of fear. Bring your walls. Bring your peace. We will burn them all, and feast on what remains." Then static. The chamber was utterly still. Kira closed her eyes. She had heard that voice before. In training sims. In nightmares. It belonged to Vorik, once captain of Ghost Alpha, now something worse. Silva turned to her. Is this one of yours? He was, Kira said. Until the leash broke. Nalari stood abruptly. This is proof. They are declaring war. No, Kira said. This is a challenge. Predators do not declare war. They invite the herd to run. Vorin looked shaken. What do we do? Silva did not answer immediately. She walked down the steps until she stood before Kira, close enough to see the weariness in her eyes. You have lived among us, Silva said. You protect our borders. You heal our wounded. Yet you are human. Why should we trust you now? Because I am not just human, Kira said. I am the one who walked away from the den, and I brought the only thing that ever calmed the beasts. She glanced toward the window where Riven's form could be seen waiting. He is not a weapon. He is a warning. And if you ignore it, you will learn what the predators already know. Silva held her gaze. Then slowly she nodded. Prepare your dragon, she said. We will send a reconnaissance team to Hades Relay. You will lead it, Kira blinked. You believe me. I believe in evidence, Silva said. And in survival. If the predators awake, I would rather face it with teeth of my own. As Kira turned to leave, Vorin spoke one last time. If this is a trick, if you lead us into a trap, then kill me first, Kira said without looking back. But do not wait until it is too late to act. Outside, the wind had picked up. Riven lifted his head as she approached. His silver eyes reflected the sky, but also something deeper. Anticipation. They're sending us to Hades, she said, running a hand along his neck, to see if the ghosts are real. Riven exhaled, a soft hum vibrating through his chest. His bioluminescent veins brightened slightly. You remember it too, don't you? She whispered. He did. Hades was where they were both born, where the first bond was forged in blood and fire, where the leash was cut. Now, they would return, not as fugitives, as hunters. The council watched from the spire as the two figures disappeared into the clouds. Woman and dragon, human and relic, past and present woven into one. They did not cheer. They did not pray. They simply watched and wondered if they were witnessing salvation, or the beginning of a darker story. For the first time in centuries, the Elven High Council felt doubt, not in their strength, not in their wisdom, but in their assumption that peace could last forever. Somewhere beyond the stars, the predators laughed, and Kira Maddox flew toward them, not with fear, but with purpose, because someone had to remember how to leash the storm, even if it meant walking back into the fire. The journey to Hades Relay took 2 days through dead space, zones where no ship dared linger, where navigation buoys had long since gone dark. Kira piloted the elven scout skiff with quiet precision, her hands steady on the controls, her eyes scanning the void. Riven lay curled behind her, his head resting on the deck, his breath a low hum that matched the engine's rhythm. They did not speak. Words were unnecessary. Both knew what awaited them. Hades had not been on any official star chart since the Unity Accords. Officially, it never existed. But in the black files of human special operations, it was legend. A deep space fortress built into the hollowed core of a dead asteroid, shielded by gravity dampeners and cloaked in null radar fields. It was where Ghost Protocol was born, where children were turned into hunters, where Riven's genes were stitched from dragon myths and nightmare. As they approached the coordinates, the skiff's sensors flickered. Debris floated in slow orbit, twisted metal, shattered hull plating, bones bleached white by cosmic rays. Not from a recent battle. This wreckage was old, decades old, but undisturbed, as if nothing had passed through this graveyard since the day Hades died. Kira slowed the skiff. We go in dark, she said. No lights. No active scans. They might still have sentry drones. Riven lifted his head, his bioluminescence dimmed to near black. He understood. They docked at an old maintenance airlock, half collapsed but still sealed. Kira suited up in a worn pressure rig, her helmet visor reflecting Riven's form as he shifted into stealth mode, his scales absorbing light, his body heat masked by internal dampeners. Together, they breached the airlock. Inside, the silence was thick, not empty, just waiting. The corridors of Hades were narrow, lined with rusted bulkheads and flickering emergency strips long past their lifespan. Dust floated in the low gravity. Footprints fresh marked the floor every few meters. Not elven. Not standard military. Bare feet. Clawed toes. Kira's breath hitched. They were not alone. She signaled Riven to stay low. He moved like smoke, his claws making no sound on the metal grating. They passed empty barracks, labs with shattered glass, containment cells with doors torn from their hinges. In one room, skeletons sat at desks, still wearing old human uniforms, their hands fused to keypads by decay. Kira did not look too long. She knew some of those faces. Deeper in, the facility changed. New wiring snaked along the walls. Power conduits glowed faintly red. The air carried a scent. Copper, sweat, and something wild like wet fur after a kill. They had found the nest. Kira stopped at a junction. Ahead, a heavy blast door stood open, its mechanisms overridden. Beyond it, low chanting echoed, rhythmic, guttural, rising and falling like a tide. She recognized it. Dominance chant, used by predator units to synchronize before a hunt. Riven pressed against her side, his body tense, his silver eyes narrowed. She tapped her wristcom, activating a passive scan. The signal bounced back instantly, dozens of biosigns. All human, all enhanced, heart rates abnormally high, muscle density off the charts. No neural inhibitors, no empathy regulators. They were pure predator. Kira pulled up an old schematic from memory. There was a control hub 3 levels down, the core of Ghost Protocol. If the leash had been cut, the override might still be there. And if it was, Riven could reactivate it. They moved downward, using service shafts and ventilation tunnels, avoiding open corridors. Twice, patrols passed below. Men and women with shaved heads, scarred skin, eyes too bright. They moved like wolves, fluid and silent, communicating with clicks and grunts. They wore no armor, only harnesses holding blades and shock prods. They did not need more. Their bodies were weapons. Finally, they reached the core chamber. It was circular, dominated by a central console ringed with dead monitors. In the center, suspended in a column of blue energy, floated a pulsing organic core, Riven's original control node. The one that should have governed every predator ever made, but the node was cracked. Dark veins spread from the fracture like infection. Kira approached slowly. As she neared, the core flickered. A voice, mechanical, ancient, whispered through hidden speakers. Subject Riven. Biosign confirmed. Predator network. Offline. Override failed. Protocol corrupted. She clenched her jaw. Someone had sabotaged it. Not just disabled it, poisoned it. Turned the leash into a trigger. Riven stepped forward, his form trembling slightly. He lowered his head toward the node. His bioluminescent veins flared bright blue. A low tone vibrated from his chest. Bioresonance. The core responded, pulses syncing with his rhythm. For a moment, the dark veins receded. Then, from the doorway, a voice cut through the hum. You always did have a soft spot for broken things, Kira. She froze. The figure stepped into the light. Tall, lean, his body covered in old scars and fresh ritual markings. His eyes were black, no white, no reflection. Just hunger. Varric. You're not supposed to be here, he said, smiling. It was not a kind smile. Neither are you, Kira said, hand drifting toward her sidearm. Varric laughed. Oh, I live here now, we all do. The old masters are gone, the accords are dust, and the leash? He gestured to the cracked core. We snapped it ourselves. You didn't snap it, Kira said. You rewired it. You turned it into a beacon. Clever girl, he said. We didn't just wake up the old blood. We improved it. No more obedience. No more limits. Just pure instinct, and now? We hunt the worthy. You killed the Silther scout crew, she said. They ran, Varric said, shrugging. Prey that runs is prey that dies. Kira's voice dropped. They were unarmed. Then they should not have been out here, he said. The frontier belongs to the strong. Riven growled, a deep vibration that shook the floor. Varric's eyes locked onto him. Still loyal, Ghostwing? Even after they abandoned you? After they called you a mistake? Riven did not move, but his wings spread slightly, ready. You don't understand, Kira said. He's not a weapon. He never was. Everything is a weapon, Varric said. Even love. Especially love, he raised a hand. From the shadows, figures emerged, 10, 20 more. All predators. All watching. Waiting for the signal. You can join us, Varric said. Your blood is strong. Your mind is sharp. And with Riven at your side, you could lead the new age. I don't want to lead monsters, Kira said. Then you'll die with the herd, Varric said. He snapped his fingers. The predators lunged. Kira fired 3 shots, stun rounds, wide dispersal. 2 fell instantly. Riven surged forward, tail sweeping low, knocking 3 more off their feet. His claws tore through reinforced muscle like paper. But more came. Always more. Kira ducked behind the console, reloading. Riven sync pulse now. Riven roared, a sound that cracked the air. He slammed his forelimbs onto the floor. A wave of bioenergy erupted from his core. Blue, pure, resonant. It hit the predators like a wall. Most collapsed, clutching their heads, their neural pathways overloaded by the sudden surge of the original Ghost Protocol signal. But Varric stood. He staggered, blood trickling from his nose. But he stood. You can't control us anymore, he snarled. We've evolved. Kira stepped out. I'm not trying to control you. I'm reminding you what you lost. We lost nothing, he spat. We shed weakness. You shed humanity, she said. He charged. They met in the center of the room. Human against human, past against present. Kira was faster, sharper, trained in evasion. Varric was brute force, raw instinct. He landed a blow to her ribs. She twisted, driving her elbow into his throat. He grunted, grabbed her arm, twisted hard. She kicked his knee. It cracked, but he didn't fall. Riven moved to intervene, but Kira shouted, "No, this is mine," because it was. Varric had been her mentor once. Her friend. The one who taught her to track, to fight, to survive. And the one who chose the hunt over the heart. She saw the moment his mind slipped, when the man faded and only the predator remained. His eyes went blacker. His breath came in snarls. That was when she struck. Not with a weapon, but with memory. Do you remember Thrennis? She asked, voice low. The girl in the red coat? You promised her you'd come back. Varric froze. For a heartbeat, the monster wavered. The man surfaced, just enough to whisper, I tried. Then the moment passed. He lunged again. Kira sidestepped, pulled a small device from her belt, the last intact fragment of the original override chip. She slammed it into the cracked core. Light exploded. Blue energy filled the chamber, pure and sharp. Every predator dropped. Even Varric fell to his knees, screaming as the old code flooded his system. Not to command, but to remind. To show him what he used to be. Riven stood at the center of it all, his body glowing like a star. Kira looked at Varric. You can still choose. He looked up at her, tears in his eyes. Too late, he whispered. Then he turned and ran, into the dark. The others would recover. The signal would fade, but for now the den was empty. Kira walked to Riven, leaning against him for support. Her ribs ached. Her hands shook. We have what we came for, she said. The truth was clear now. Ghost Protocol had not been reactivated by accident. It had been hijacked, twisted, and the predators were not rogue. They were organized, led, and they were coming for the elven worlds. She activated her comm. Lethera, this is Maddox. Mission complete. Hades is active, and the predator instinct. It's not just awake, but it's hunting. Kira's message had barely finished transmitting when the first strike hit Dusk Hollow, a sanctuary world nestled in the outer belt of elven territory, known for its orchards of silver blossom trees and schools of young learners. It was not a military target. It held no weapons, no fleet, no strategic value, only life, and that was why they chose it. The attack came not with ships, but with drop pods, black, silent, shaped like fangs. They pierced the atmosphere without warning, landing in the fields and groves just after dawn. Within minutes, the quiet streets filled with screams. Kira and Riven arrived 2 hours later, skiffs screaming through the upper clouds. Below, smoke coiled into the sky. Fires burned in neat, deliberate patterns. Homes, clinics, the great library. Not random. Not chaotic. This was method. They're hurting them, Kira said, voice tight. Riven growled low in his throat, his bioluminescence shifting from blue to a warning crimson. Dusk Hollow's defense force was small, mostly peacekeepers trained in crowd control, not combat. They had already fallen. Bodies lay in the plaza, not shot but torn, as if something had wanted them to suffer. Kira landed near the central grove. The air smelled of ash and blood. She stepped out, weapon drawn, scanning for movement. Riven stayed close, his senses sharper than any scanner. Then from the tree line, children emerged, dozens of them, wide-eyed, trembling. They had hidden in the root caves as taught in drills, but their teachers were gone. Kira lowered her weapon. "It's all right," she said softly. "You're safe now." One boy, no older than 6, pointed past her. They took the elders. Into the old spire. Kira's stomach dropped. The spire was the heart of Dusk Hollow, a place of meditation, not defense. If the predators had taken hostages there, they weren't just killing. They were making a statement. "Stay here," she told the children. "Riven will guard you." The dragon lowered his head, letting the smallest girl touch his snout. His crimson glow softened to a gentle amber. Then he settled around the group like a living wall. Kira moved toward the spire. It rose above the trees, its white stone stained with soot. As she neared, she saw them. Predators, maybe 30, standing in a loose circle around the entrance. They did not pace. They did not speak. They waited, as if expecting her. And at the center of them stood Varek. He wore no shirt, his scars gleaming with oil. His eyes were black again, but his posture was different. Calmer, focused. This was not the feral beast from Hades. This was a leader. "You came," he said, voice carrying easily. "You knew I would," Kira replied. "I counted on it." He gestured to the spire. "The elders are inside, unharmed, for now." "Why this place?" she asked. "They're no threat to you." "That's the point," Varek said. "Peace is weakness, and weakness invites the strong to test their claws." "You're not strong," Kira said. "You're afraid. Afraid that if peace spreads, your kind will have no place to hide." Varek's smile faded. "Maybe, but fear makes us sharper." He stepped closer. The other predators did not move. They watched as if this was a ritual. "Join us," he said again, quieter this time. "Not as a soldier. As a sister. We remember what you were, what you could be." Kira shook her head. "I remember what you were too. A man who saved my life on Ceres Ridge, who carried a wounded comrade through acid rain. That man wouldn't do this. That man is dead," Varek said. "Killed by lies and treaties, but you still have a choice." Behind her, Riven stirred. Not aggressively, just enough to remind them he was there. Varek's eyes flicked to the dragon. "He's holding back the signal, isn't he? The old code. That's why you came. Not to fight, to leash us." "I came to stop you," Kira said. "Then stop me," he said, spreading his arms. "But know this, if you kill me, they'll slaughter the elders. And if you don't, I walk away and we burn another world tomorrow." It was a trap, not of blades, but of conscience. Kira looked at the spire. She could not let them die. But if she yielded, more would suffer. Then she remembered something. Ghost protocol did not rely on force. It relied on hierarchy, on instinctual recognition of alpha dominance. The predators were engineered to submit to a stronger presence, not through violence, but through biological reflex. Riven was the key. She turned slightly, just enough to signal him. Not with words. With breath. With trust. Riven understood. He rose from the grove, moving slowly, deliberately. The children stayed hidden, but his presence filled the air like thunder before rain. His bioluminescence shifted again, now pure white, intense, pulsing in a slow, steady rhythm. The predators tensed. Some dropped to one knee, hands clutching their heads. Their bodies recognized the signal even if their minds fought it. Varek snarled. "No, resist it." But the bioresonance was too strong. It wasn't a command. It was memory. The memory of obedience, of order, of something before the hunt. One by one, the predators knelt. All except Varek. He stood trembling, sweat beading on his brow. "You can't do this," he rasped. "We're free. Freedom isn't chaos," Kira said. "It's choice. And you chose wrong." She walked toward him, unarmed now. "You don't have to be this." For a moment, his mask cracked. The man surfaced, afraid, tired, lost. "I don't know how to stop," he whispered. "Let go," she said. He looked at her. Really looked. Then his shoulders slumped. But then his eyes hardened again. "No," he lunged, not at her but past her, toward the spire. Toward the elders. Kira moved instantly. But Riven was faster. With a roar that shook the trees, the dragon unleashed a focused sonic pulse, a frequency tuned to disrupt neural stability and enhanced humans. It hit Varek like a wall. He staggered, clutching his skull, blood trickling from his ears and nose. He turned, eyes wild, and charged Riven. The dragon met him head-on. They collided in a blur of scale and sinew. Varric was strong, fast, fueled by rage. But Riven was ancient design, precision over power. He dodged a clawed strike, coiled, and struck with his tail. It hit Varric's chest with bone-crushing force. Varric fell, gasping. Kira was beside him in an instant. "It's over." He looked up at her, blood on his lips. "It was over the day they turned us into dogs," he said. Then his body went still. Not dead. Not yet, but broken. The other predators remained kneeling, heads bowed. The signal held. Kira turned to the spire. "It's safe," she called. The doors opened. The elders emerged, shaken but unharmed. They stared at the scene, the kneeling hunters, the silent dragon, the fallen leader, and understood. Kira walked back to Riven, placing a hand on his side. He leaned into her, his glow softening. The children came running then, not with fear, but with hope. They gathered around the dragon, touching his scales with awe. An elder approached Kira. "You did not kill them. They're not the enemy," she said. "The enemy is the idea that made them this way." "What now?" the elder asked. "Now," Kira said, looking toward the sky. "We warn the council. The predators may be silenced today, but Varric wasn't acting alone. Someone is feeding them, training them. And they'll try again." She knelt beside Varric's still form. "But next time we won't just leash them. We'll find who cut the leash in the first place." Riven lowered his head beside her, his silver eyes reflecting the smoke and the stars. Above them, the twin suns of Dusk Hollow began to set, casting long shadows. But for the first time in days, the air was quiet. Not because the war was over, but because the right side had finally remembered how to fight. Weeks passed. The ash over Dusk Hollow settled. The silver blossom trees began to sprout new leaves, pale and tender. The children returned to their lessons, though their eyes now held shadows that had not been there before. And in the heart of Lethera, the High Council met not in their usual chamber of light and calm, but in the war room, a space unused for over 2 centuries. Kira stood before them again. Not as a guest, not as a suspect, but as the one who had seen the storm and walked through it. Riven waited outside, coiled around the base of the central spire, his presence a quiet hum in the air. He did not need to enter. His work had already spoken. Archmatron Silva sat at the head of the table, her face unreadable, though her hands rested lightly on the surface, uncharacteristically still. The other elders watched Kira with new eyes. Respect had replaced suspicion, but fear remained. "You brought them back," Silva said. "The predators alive." "Most are in stasis," Kira replied. "Their neural inhibitors reactivated through Riven's resonance. They're no longer a threat unless someone wakes them again." "And Varric?" asked Elder Nalari. "In deep medical hold. His mind is fractured, part man, part beast, but he spoke before the sedation took hold." Kira paused. "He said they were trained on a hidden station beyond the Veil Nebula, by humans who never signed the Accords, who believe peace is a cage." A silence fell. "So it is not rogue units," Vorin said slowly. "It is a movement." "Worse," Kira said. "It is a revival. They call themselves the Unbound. They believe humanity's true nature is dominance, and they see the elves and all peaceful species as cattle waiting to be culled." Silva's voice was cold. "Then we must destroy this station." "You cannot," Kira said. "Not with warships. Not with bombs. The Unbound expect that. They want you to strike, because then they can show the galaxy that the elves are no better than they are, willing to kill without trial, without warning." "What would you have us do?" Nalari asked. "Do nothing," Kira said. "Publicly. Let them think they have won. Let them grow bold." She looked at each elder in turn. "But in secret, let me go. With Riven. We know their patterns, their weaknesses. I can find the station, and I can cut the head from the snake." Silva studied her. "You would go alone, into the heart of their den." "I am the only one who can," Kira said. "They know my scent, my history. If I appear as a traitor, willing to join them, they will let me in. And once I am inside, Riven can trigger a full system purge, not just of the predators, but of the data, the labs, the leaders." It was a dangerous plan, reckless even, but the council saw what she offered. Not victory through force, but through sacrifice. Silva rose. "You ask us to send our only shield into the mouth of the wolf. I ask you to trust that not all humans are wolves," Kira said. "Some are still shepherds." The room was still for a long time. Then Silva nodded. Go. But know this, if you fall, we will not send ships to avenge you. We will honor your silence, and we will remember. Kira bowed slightly. That is all I ask. That night, she and Riven left Lithera without fanfare. No ceremony, no farewells, just two figures vanishing into the stars as they had done so many times before. The journey to the Veil Nebula took 11 days. The station was hidden well, masked by ion storms and false signals. But Kira knew where to look. Varric had given her a clue in his broken speech, a star name half-remembered, tied to an old lullaby their unit used to calm their minds after missions. She found it nestled in the nebula's heart, a jagged structure built from wreckage and ambition. The Unbound Stronghold. She hailed them on an old Ghost Protocol frequency. This is Kira Maddox. I have returned, the response came quickly. Prove it. She sent a code, her old unit sigil, the sequence that unlocked Riven's first bond. The station doors opened. Inside, she was met by figures in black robes, their faces hidden. They led her through steel corridors lined with cages, failed experiments, broken predators, even a few elven scouts, thin and hollow-eyed. Riven walked beside her, his head low, his glow dimmed. They did not see him as a threat, only as a relic. At the center of the station stood the Master. He was old, perhaps the last surviving architect of Ghost Protocol. His name was Dr. Ellis Morn, once a celebrated bioengineer, now a zealot. You disappointed us, Kira, he said, voice smooth as oil. You chose compassion over strength. I chose humanity, she said. Humanity is weakness, he said. We are refining it. You're erasing it, he smiled. Soon the galaxy will see the truth. The strong will rule, the weak will serve, and you will lead the new breed. He gestured to a chamber beyond, a lab filled with vats, each holding a dormant predator. Bond with them, as you did with Riven. Become their queen. Kira stepped forward. I accept. For 3 days she played the part. She studied the systems. She walked the halls. She let them believe she had turned. And all the while, Riven stayed close, his resonance subtly syncing with the station's core. On the 4th night, she made her move. While the Unbound slept, she accessed the central node. Riven stood at the heart of the chamber, his body glowing brighter than ever. With a deep hum, he unleashed the full Ghost Protocol signal. Not corrupted, not twisted, but pure. The original design. A command not of obedience, but of restoration. Every predator in the station collapsed, their enhancements overloaded, their minds flooded with the memory of what they once were. Soldiers, not monsters. Alarms blared. Guards rushed in. Kira met them not with bullets, but with truth. You were lied to, she told them. You were made to hate, but you can choose to heal. Some fought. Most dropped their weapons. Morn tried to flee. Riven blocked his path. The old man stared into the dragon's silver eyes, and for the first time he looked afraid. You were never supposed to be real, he whispered. But I am, Kira said behind him. She did not kill him. She let the station's own systems judge him, locking him in a stasis pod with the very predators he had broken. Then she triggered the self-destruct. She and Riven escaped just as the station began to tear itself apart. Behind them, fire bloomed in the nebula, a funeral pyre for a nightmare. Weeks later, they returned to Lithera. The council awaited them not in the war room, but in the Garden of Reflection, a place reserved for those who change the course of history. Silva stepped forward. You have done more than stop a threat. You have shown us that even in the darkest of human hearts there is a choice. Kira looked at Riven, then at the elders. I did not do this for praise. I did it because someone had to remember what we lost. Then let us remember with you, Silva said. She raised her hand. From this day forth, Kira Maddox shall be known as the Edge of Balance, guardian of the line between peace and predation. The title was not given lightly. It was a duty, and Kira accepted it. In the months that followed, she and Riven traveled the frontier, not as soldiers, but as watchers. Where shadows gathered, they stood. Where fear spread, they calmed. And when the old whispers returned, they answered. Not with war, but with warning. Because when the predator awakens, someone must remember how to leash it, and Kira Maddox would never forget.